could join us on this conversation. Apart from Odikro, that does purely MPs, it assesses the MPs' attendance and their level of contribution. We haven't had any research like this that goes to the constituencies, and your sample size was huge, 27,000 plus. 500. That's huge. From every, you selected 5 electoral areas from
20
okay. Let's start from there, because your methodology has been questioned. The speaker says the question your methodology. So tell us what your methodology was. How did you arrive at these figures?
Thank you, Evans. I'm pleased to be here since election day 2016.
Yes.
And let me make 1 or 2 clarifications before I come to my methodology.
Okay.
The very first one is that this research is not the whole of political science projects. In previous times, we had projects which was for the department. But this one is by a team of lecturers in the department with the support of Conrad Adler Foundation, who have been doing this. We did it 2016 before the election. We have looked at Akufo-Addo's first year, and we have looked at the second year. So this is about the 4th that we are doing. Let me also say that we know the roles of MPs. We know that MPs have a lot of things to do as lawmakers. They have deliberative functions on all national issues. They have oversight issues. They control the purse and all that. And these, they do both at the committee level and the plenaries. I can even extend it to say that they have even international responsibilities now in ECOWAS and Africa Parliament. But I also think nobody would deny that they don't have constituency functions as our representatives. Yeah. You just mentioned Odikru had focused on their work in Parliament. Yeah. And we decided to look at their work in their constituencies. Okay. So the focus of our work was what the voters say about the constituency functions of MPs. So we were just looking at that aspect and not all functions of the MP. We have to be clear about that. And on the methodology, we thought through and said, if you do it for a few constituencies.
But just for clarity on the first one.
Yes.
So you're looking at what the MP's function is in the constituency. Purely from the point of view of their constituents.
Exactly.
It was an opinion poll.
Opinion poll, yes.
Asking them their opinions of
how far their MPs have performed over the 2.5 years.
Okay. So to some extent, the people themselves set their own parameters. I mean, so what they tell you is what you report.
Exactly.
Okay. So
we are not putting anything in apart from what they said.
So that's an important clarity. They tell you is what we told you is what you've reported.
All that we did is to calculate the percentages and so on of what they said. Okay. On the methodology, all the 275, we sent people through all of them. We took 5 electoral areas in each constituency, except I think 2 constituencies in Accra, which has less than 5. And in choosing the electoral areas, we went picking from the hat. We list the name of all the electoral areas and pick 5 of them. And in each...
Which is the proper research method, by the way. For those of you who think, how can you be choosing from the hat? How is that? It's a process that is used.
It's good on another platform. People were saying, maybe you pick from my enemy area and all that. Yeah. We didn't want to bring all those controversies.
But this is random.
So we did this one randomly. Yeah. So it could be your stronghold also. That was what we did. And for each of them, 20 respondents, each electoral area. So 100 for each constituency. And when they got there, we asked them to interview every 5th household. Okay. So that you don't just sit in one household and do that. So that is was the methodology we went through, and I think it's as scientific as possible. When we come to the...
What was the margin of error?
I can't tell you quickly. Osman should have told me that.
Okay. Because you know that's important.
Yes.
Judging how
Yes.
our research is. Okay. So it would be good that if the doctors listening to send you a note. So that we can have that put.
that will clarify that.
Yes.
So if you look at the demographics, it's male, female, 53.5, 46.5. You assume, why do we have more females, but it's like this? But we all know that if you go to any house, the woman will tell you, wait for my husband. So to get 53% male and 46 is not too bad. And in other areas, age, religion, and so on, they actually match with the national statistics. In terms of educational background, 19% say they have never been to school. And we have all the others, right down to about 5.6 for those who have university degrees. There also, somebody has suggested we should have interviewed enlightened people, and we were wondering what that meant. So, in brief, this was the methodology.
So you had the members of parliament this week. The Speaker of Parliament says, what you measured is not what the MPs do. In fact, he suggested and he demanded, in fact, the minority leader even suggested there's a committee that should be formed to work with you in agreeing on what to measure, and that you should measure what the constitution say they do. And that what you did was inciting the public against the constituents, going to measure things like development, and when they don't do that. What's your reaction to that?
I'm wondering whether constituency services is not one of the core duties of a representative.
But does that include development?
And what we did here is about constituency services. And you agree with me that the MPs, as we will come to very soon, themselves promised some of these things.
True.
It is 8.7% of them who were told made promises in the course of the campaign.
This is what the constituents told you,
that
they had their MPs.
Yes. And they mentioned provision of water, road construction, and the rest of it. So, to tell me it is not part, they have always been saying they are not development agents and all that. So that was the reason why we wanted to ask if they were making promises and so on. We also, in the course of what the MPs does in the constituency, majority of them said they are advocates for development. So maybe they were not expecting them to do it all by themselves.
But advocate for it to be done.
Advocate for it.
And that is what the constituents told you.
Yes.
So that is interesting. So it's not true that the constituents told you that they expect their MPs to actually be building the roads, but
they should be
advocating for the roads to be done.
Yes.
Those are two different things. The impression you get from Parliament and the concern is that, but what you want to measure, we are not development agents.
And I don't agree.
Okay.
Because it is part of what? Constituency services.
Okay.
And if people were already developed and they don't need those specific things, then maybe they will not ask for that. But if you take a system, that is an important part of what they need. And I've already also explained that they said in the course of the campaign, they made promises. But when we asked them, what do you think is the rule? In fact, it was the first thing we asked. And they said they should be advocates for development projects before we came to promises. And they said they did make them. In the course of our dissemination, the MPs who were there told us that, no, they didn't make those promises personally, but that was what was in their manifestos. And that if their party came to power, they were going to do those things. So our problem was that, is that how you explain it to your constituents? And I think if they had said, when our party comes to power, maybe the responses will be the same.
Yeah.
So if you don't communicate well, with your constituents. And we don't see any problem we have in saying what your constituents said you have.
You also found that MPs, majority of them do not visit their constituency.
Yes.
Many of them haven't been there at all.
Some haven't been there at all. But there are a few who are there,
Yeah.
monthly, 2 months, 3 months, and so on.
Yeah.
And some, like we have said before, said they haven't seen their MPs since
They won.
they won. But in the course of the campaign, they came to their villages, however remote they were, and that sort of thing.
Sweeney, Tamale North, have you seen your bit in the assess individual MPs? Your constituents assessed you?
They assess individual constituencies.
Constituencies, yes. And by station, you're
The one representing it.
and you performed, you scored what?
I don't think that is important. I know I didn't score badly.
You've seen it, let's say it.
I've seen it.
But you didn't publish that. Did you publish that?
It's about 70%. But you see, that shouldn't. We should.
Let me clarify something.
Yeah.
Did you publish that aspect of the individual assessment? I'm told you didn't.
No, they didn't.
They didn't.
What
publish it.
happened?
Yeah, but
you
so
know,
how did the MPs? Just because he did the thing. So
Yeah,
let me
sorry.
come.
I agree with
Explain that. You didn't publish that. So how did that get in the public domain? And MPs know.
I don't know. I can't tell you.
So why did you publish that? Though?
We had felt that after the dissemination and we have raised some of these issues, the MPs will come and we will give them the details.
Okay, privately.
The details of their constituencies.
Privately.
In fact, privately. The idea was that we were not going to crucify anybody.
Public.
But these are the things we have seen. And if there are 10% or 50% of people sitting on the fence, the MP come and see which electoral areas these things were happening, so that you can do your work within the next 18 or so months.
Did you get to give it to them privately?
We told those who were there that
Okay.
they could see us for all the details. Apart from the statistical ones, we also have qualitative data and all that. So a lot of information, which in fact, if we were going to do all that for that workshop, we wouldn't have finished.
Okay.
So that was what we tried to give the national averages and the regional averages,
Okay.
and hoping that anybody who wanted, and right there people were asking for their own details and so on.
Okay. So how did you get yours?
Well, through my sources.
That's all.
But Evans, before I look at this matter, you read a text message earlier. I am scandalized on the denial by the Vice President office. I am scandalized that we want to, stoop.
See, you made the point. You made the point.
I think that
He's come back. Let's move on. Let's move on.
We can't move on. I am challenging you in the media. I'm challenging our tech geeks to settle this matter.
So
Because
that's for later. No, but let's deal with this.
I just want to throw that challenge.
You made the
we
point.
must
They've come back and said
settle
that
this
is
matter.
not. That is not
Indeed,
there.
he said so.
So
let's look at the research. You can understand why Parliament is uncomfortable with these reports, and you can understand why the Speaker had to communicate the way he did on behalf of Parliament, because, so to speak, he's the embodiment of Parliament as we sit today. And when we see, independent intellectual work, that also has the tendency of scapegoating MPs and, for that matter, Parliament. It is important that we raise it. I mean, we work with information in the House, and so we cannot be against research as parliamentarians. But we will wish, as the Speaker communicated, that some of these, reports also factor in the unique position that Parliament holds, like when Dr. Raymond Atuguba did his research on the judiciary. For the preservation of the image of the judiciary and others, it was, the report was carefully, discussed and released in such a way
Was it ever released?
Well, it wasn't released. Thank you. It wasn't released, but it was carefully discussed.
But the problem with that is that told us what his findings, conclusions were, and
understand.
didn't disclose the methodology as we see. So it couldn't be tested against the scientific paradigm.
But you see, I'm saying there are reasons. There are reasons why some of these things, even when you carry out research, because of maybe the institution and the role it plays, you don't want to put it in a certain light.
Except because it's parliament,
that's just an example.
And you represent.
I agree.
Just on that point. Just on that point. Because it's parliament, you represent us.
I feel like a cockroach in the court of men.
I know. Yes, you are.
I move on.
You are.
Thank you.
I mean, but you get the point, right?
Fair, I get the point you are making, but allow me to make. I don't disagree with you. If I end, you realize that I don't disagree with you at all. But I am saying that it is important that we factor in the concerns that some MPs have raised, and by extension, what the speaker has said. For example, if you are assessing, the performance of an MP in his constituency, and the outcome of the report is that the constituents want him more in his constituency, and it is released and not discussed within the context of what is expected of an MP, you'll get all MPs vacating the House of Parliament and being in their constituency. It can be done. It can be done. You see, MPs will be, when you are not also in Parliament, Odikro and what is the name, Africa Watch, will also rate you as an absentee parliamentarian. So it is a tightrope that MPs are walking, and so we expect that some of this research will help us, walk it better, but not scapegoat us. For example, when I talk about scapegoating, when I looked through the report, there's a portion where questions are asked about whether the MP respects the district chief executive, whether the MP respects the assemblyman, whether the MP respects the chief. That, for me, sounds like an attempt to scapegoat an MP. Why don't you ask, for example, if they have cordial relationship? Is it to say that it is the MP who should respect?
But they are assessing.
Yeah, so you are assessing your work. No, but you are assessing. Once, if they say they don't have a cordial relationship, you can then do that analysis and find out who is the cause of it. Because an MP may not be respecting a DCE, and it's not his fault. But once you put the question there, the assumption of the constituents is that it is for the MP to respect the DCE. So you kind of put the MP in a very bad light, that even when he is uncomfortable with what is happening in his constituency, the constituents expect him to respect the DCE. So I'm saying some of these things can make MPs feel uncomfortable. When I see a question like that being asked about why, the question could have just been, do they have a cordial relationship? And then based on that, that is the quantitative part of it. Then if you want to go into the qualitative assessment of it, you can find out why they don't have a cordial relationship. And these are some of the things that I noticed some people had problems with. Then again, for me, like I said, I love research. I love research because, you see, research gives you a basis to act. Whether you agree with it or not, it gives you a basis to act. So I am not one who, will pick a research report and just dismiss it on the basis of its findings. I will want to act to prove that the findings are wrong. Or I will want to act to prove that the findings are correct. So personally, I love research. But what I again see in this report is that the methodology was qualitative. It was quantitative. And it treated...
it's a blend of both.
No, but what was released? What was the part that you released? You said that you have the qualitative part of it, but the part that was released is quantitative. So I'm saying that in quantitative analysis, and by what I see that they have done, the constituencies were treated as homogeneous entities. But really, they are not. Every constituency has a life. It has a character. It has a culture. It has needs, which are different from the other constituencies. And maybe that is the problem with quantitative analysis. It treats all agents as if they were just, robots. So it doesn't matter if I have 5 electoral areas in my constituency and you have 60 electoral areas. If I have 5 and you come and pick 5, that's representative enough. But maybe if I have 100 electoral areas and you come and pick 5, it may not be that representative. So that is where I find a problem with the universal, determination of, the whole report. I mean, it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. Every constituency is the same. Every constituency behaves in the same manner. They all have the same needs. Their people react the same way. So the questionnaire is administered without, recourse to the fact that these constituencies differ from each other. But if he says there is a qualitative one that they have not they have not released, maybe some of these concerns can be answered in that.
It says it's available if you want it.
I'm saying maybe that can be answered in that report. Now there was also the issue of role of an MP. And for me, it is alarming that, for example, the traditional roles of the MP that we know of, representation, and advocacy is part of representation, mind you. But really, and then what do you call it? Legislating. If you look at the scores for representation and legislation, it's alarming. It shows a certain lack of knowledge, which should not necessarily be blamed on the way the MPs campaign alone. It tells us that there is a general lack of knowledge as far as the expectations of the citizens is concerned when it comes to what their MPs can do for them. And that cannot be singularly blamed on how politicians campaign. Let's not make that mistake of thinking that this particular thinking that has come out of this report is squarely blamable on the way MPs campaign.
Largely blamable on them.
But even if I don't want to contest that, but it is important to look at the other factors that may be contributing to this knowledge.
Such as even our own understanding of democracy and what elections are all about and why we vote. The education on all of these issues matters. Then what you wanted to prove. The advocacy part for development, you realize that the marks were very high. Yeah.
People expected
50.8%.
Advocacy for development. But I will also challenge, or I will wish to know if they did an assessment of what the people thought they were answering. Whether advocacy for development, what does it mean?
Whether they understood.
Whether they understood even advocacy for development. I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm saying it will be interesting because you see, we are in the constituencies, and so I'll give a practical example. There was a road in 2016 in my constituency that I lobbied. I went through urban roads. I went through the Ministry of Road. I got it to be captured and finally awarded. The project started. There was a change of government in 2016. The road got stalled. And anybody who has monitored me on platforms, anytime we talk about constituencies and some of these developments, I have raised the point and the need for that road to get back. The contractors to get back to work.
At the time you were lobbying, you were not an MP.
I wasn't an MP, yes. But I had a favorable government that was also minded to do, roads. So it was easy to lobby through that government. So I'm saying that I have done advocacy on this road. Now, fortunately, the road has been awarded again to a different contractor though. And the contractor is on site. But it will not be seen. Now the MPP people in my constituency see it as their project. And the credit doesn't come to me, even though I have played that advocacy role. So I'm saying that it will be important to know if the measurement of advocacy is in line with what the researchers taught. The understanding of the people who are answering is in line with the researchers' understanding of advocacy. Because when the people say advocacy for development, trust me, I believe, and you can, if maybe a research can prove me wrong, I believe the understanding is that does he do development? That is why actually build roads. That he actually build hospitals. That is why in part of the research, you ask them to name projects
The name
that
roads.
the MP enrolls that they have
It's
done.
because you have indicated that
Okay,
Yeah.
because
you have promised them.
Aha.
Okay.
So I'm saying that the understanding is also
There's a quick question I
important.
need to ask you, then we
Yeah.
can move on to that.
Yeah.
Out of the report that you've seen, what is it that you've taken out to help you improve your work? I'm curious because I've heard the criticism.
I'll tell you what I notice. People, I mean, in Greater Accra, for example, it was reported that majority of the MPs don't visit their constituencies. Now, I did a quick assessment, and I realized that in regions where the MPs have most offices, you had a problem of the people complaining that they don't see their MPs. So it is possible that the MPs, when even they go to the constituency, they sit in their office.
And you have to come to them.
And you have to come to them. And why that is also important is that...
But then you go to your people.
Wait a minute. I go because maybe I don't have
You
an
don't have
office.
offices.
So
Then
I'm saying
you are doing
that,
better.
but you see, but what I'm saying is that what this
And the one who sits in
this
office
tells
will be
me,
criticized.
what this tells me again is that 40%, we are told, of those who have communicated with their MPs, 70, is it 75? Yes, 75.4% of them say they're happy with the MP's response.
Yes.
40%. So my assumption is this: the 60% who don't communicate usually judge their MPs based on their own prejudice.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to communicate?
Wait a minute. I'll answer that. That's why I'm saying the takeaway.
yeah.
And the takeaway here for me is that when you look at public fora, they complained that there were not enough public fora. So for me, the challenge for MPs and Parliament is how we can engage constituents more. Because the more people engage with you, the more
their perception of you.
understand and appreciate what
What you're
do.
doing. Okay,
So it is
hold on.
important.
Let me bring it in.
It's an important research, but it also our concerns have to be, you know.
I think that's why.
I expected the MPs to have a pushback, which is great. We are not discussing MPP MBC now. There's still came up with a report that it's an equal opportunities hitter. It hits them very hard.
Like
Some of
that.
them are whinging and whining and crying like babies.
There's so all of that. There's unity. There's unity in Parliament.
But it's important that the minority was singled out for praise.
There he goes. There he goes again.
Now we do better even in opposition.
No, actually, you do. Everybody does better in the position. No, it is good that we have this takeaway. We are discussing it. We are criticizing the report. They are learning. They are listening to the criticisms. But suggestions like they should come and sit down with you for what?
Agree on the parameters.
No. Why? Are you the one hiring them? Are you the one determining for the researcher how to research? The researchers can't read the constitution. Look, this is what's interesting. I'm pretty certain that Prof. Okwe has made you do research before.
He was the first to let me do. I've been a student for a long time.
I was a student too. So when you talk about inciting the people, this is research. They cannot sit with Parliament for Parliament to tell them which questions to ask. It's an opinion poll. It is the research. No. Let me say, it's a research. Oh no. I allow. Please, but you like. I like that.
No, I just wanted to say that is not what we are saying. We're saying that it's important we also understand.
You all don't speak with one voice. But
anyway,
you're inciting the people.
Yeah.
They went to ask questions, and the people responded. How is that incitement? Then it means that you become too sensitive to criticism. But you're public officials. Let me be sensitive to criticism because I'm a private person, but not you who's paid with our money. And if even a minority of your constituents said this, it is sufficient indication to you that maybe you're not doing something right. And I like how Suhina ended that. Look, maybe you need to engage more. Don't go and sit in your constituency office. The only people who come to your constituency office are your foot soldiers and the party people.
True.
The people across the aisle whose votes you need to carry the majority will not come to your constituency office. I don't know where the constituency office.
Meanwhile, when it's election time, you go.
You come to our house, right? So come to us. Now you said that they should look at what the constitution says. Well, there's a fundamental question: is the MP a development agent? Did you come to me campaigning that send me to Parliament because I am such a great legislator that I'm going to make laws? Or when you came to my house, I said I don't like the state of the road. They said vote for me and let me do something about it. So you sell yourself as a development agent. In fact, you sell yourself as the only development agent. You say that the district assembly's common fund, I'm going to use it to do XYZ. When you are assessed on what you said you do, suddenly you say you are not a development agent and that you are just a legislator. You are there to pass laws. Really? So you want somebody to read the Constitution? Did you read the Constitution when you sold yourself that you are better than the other person? How were you better? Were you better as one who will make laws? I mean, so when you went to take that seat, did you say, send me there because I can pass very good public sector management act and stuff like that? That's not what you campaign on. We are judging you on what you said. If you don't like it, next time come and say something better. Then you change the narrative. Now, so this meeting, I think, is unnecessary. Let's criticize the report. And I'm sure the University of Ghana is enjoying this. Because suddenly they've thrown something out there in the mix and we are debating performance. You might disagree, but it's out there. Let's talk about it. Now, so the irritation isn't on. I think that parliamentarians should take it easy. Stop being irritated. This is not a national, they are not your WAEC, right? Your WAEC will be in 2020. Yeah. They have commented on the work you are doing. The smart person will say, maybe I'm working hard, but these are lacunae, these are gaps in what I'm doing. I need to do XYZ because my next election is 2020. It doesn't mean you are leaving Parliament to go and camp in your constituency and leave the work of Parliament undone. That will also fix you. It just means that when we elect you, we expect you to reasonably divide your time. But you don't sit. You don't sit every day of the week, right?
No, we don't sit.
You sit 4 days.
Yeah, only 4 days.
So 4 days. Yeah. So for out of the 7 days, you are almost 50%. To do everything else that you want to do, go to your constituency, or however far it is, or however close it is. Isn't it interesting that it's a Greater Accra MPs who are most guilty of not visiting their constituencies? So where are they? In their homes? So you only work 4 days a week, apart from, there's committee work and everything. Not just that. You go on vacation.
Their consistencies.
Our MPs go on long vacation as if they are students. Christmas they go on break, Easter they go on break, then they have long vacation where there's no parliamentary sitting. What excuse do you have for not engaging with your people? So where do you spend the vacation? In the Seychelles, in England, or in Barbados?
In their constituency.
Yeah. So, but if you indeed spend the time in the constituency and your constituents are not seeing you and complaining, then there's something wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong, and you got to deal with it. Look, take the point. You need to change, Mr. Madam MP, or change the narrative. Change or change the narrative. You have seen the areas in which they say you fall short. Address those. Look, ignore it. 2020 will show whether you are right or wrong. It's just next year. We will know. But my criticism of the researchers is that, where's the full report? How dare you just give us the quantitative and tell us that as for the qualitative they should see in chambers? You put to why? Put it out there.
They don't want to shame anybody.
No. But we are paying the MPs with hard-earned money. They are buying cars with our loans. They are eating our money.
Those who want to contest in their constituencies actually pay people to do some of these qualitative.
I agree. But if you've done it, publish
it out.
Put it out there. What are you afraid of? Why are we so? And you see, there's a problem. Everything in Ghana is an exam. Everything is house protocol. Ronaldo, Messi. The is this. Put it out there. Let's know exactly what
Chelsea, Man United.
Well, I might say Chelsea, Barca. That's the whole idea.
CR7.
Number 6 to 66.
I didn't hear that.
So we didn't hear that.
No. I didn't.
So put it out there. Let's read it. And in the so-called advanced countries, this is what we see. They put it out. There's debate, vigorous debate. Democracy, and I'm ending with this. Democracy, Obama says, is a debate. You have a view, I have a view. It doesn't make you right or wrong, doesn't make me right or wrong. We exchange it. If we have compromise, we put it down and say, this is a decision. Yeah. Now let's continue to debate the other. So please, put it out there. Let's debate it. They are our servants. If you've done the work at the university, they're partly still on our subvention, then please, put it out. Let's all read it. And maybe, like you said, the qualitative would answer some of the questions we have on the numbers that you put out there. I would urge the political science department, put it out. Let's all read it.
Is the speaker justified?